welcome to tonight's stream. So good to see all of you here already, and I'm very glad that YouTube is still working. There was a lot of fear that it was going to stop, so I'm glad that that has not come to be the case. So, right. I see it's afternoon for some people, morning for others, somewhere in between for everybody else, which is fantastic. So I've got chat over on that screen over there if you're wondering why I keep looking off into the distance. It's not because I'm thinking of something meaningful to say, it's because I'm reading all of your questions. So yes, it's a usual show tonight. We'll be answering your questions with regards to TTRPGs, and then we will be going through one of the submissions, an adventure submission, which was sent through to the Circle of World Builders Masterclass, I should say, quite some time ago now. It seems almost like a lifetime, really. But we're going through one of those submissions, which is an adventure submission, and you'll be able to look at that, and I'll go through a random one, and we'll look for the strengths, the weaknesses, and what we can learn from it. So that is the plan for tonight. So I think let's get on with it. So if you have a question, put the word in caps, question, in front of it so that I can see it popping out nice and bold. Actually, you know what? I forgot to turn this on. Look, there we go. There we go. Look, now I can see your questions coming through. Exactly as Half Past has done as that. You can then ask a question and hopefully I will answer it. Xander the Green, I am so happy. I'm so glad that you have finally got it. I cannot express how amazing your support really was in that Nautical Campaigns Kickstarter. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Right, so Half Past says question. Guy, how can I ever achieve a voice as smooth and buttery as yours? Oh dear, oh dear. So you asked that question, and I used to teach people how to do that, as a matter of fact. So first things to bear in mind is that the course did take a year of study with theory behind it. But what you find, or what not what you find, what you do, the rule of what you do principally, is you have what you call your professional voice. And I spent quite a long time trying to get rid of my professional voice, actually, when I was doing all of the YouTube videos, because it sounds great when you're doing voiceover work or when you're doing commercials, but when you are just talking to people, it makes you seem like a nutcase. It really does. And so I have spent a lot of time trying to get rid of it, as a matter of fact, but it obviously still sticks around. So your professional voice is the voice that you put on, and you often see in films people going ooh-ee-ah-ee, and trying to loosen up their lips so their articulation is better. And then you project a different kind of voice, and you control your breathing, you control your diaphragm, you control the air flowing through you. Shouldn't ever be sitting down whilst doing it either, by the way. It cramps all of the muscles and things. You want to be standing so you have full control over your muscles and that sort of thing. But then you have your professional voice, which is peppy and zesty and is what you hear in documentaries and that sort of thing, which makes no sense on how to use it. So really it is just training. That's the bottom line. It's just training and practice, and so you can get there. I do believe, however, that we all have different talents and we all have different abilities in terms of controlling what our bodies do and do not. And for example, I'm an awful singer, absolutely awful. I have no idea how to sing, and I know it sounds crazy, but I did karaoke a lot of times in Japan and just couldn't do it. I don't know how you do it. I don't know. There's a trick. There's a secret. I don't get it. So anyway, there you go. That's it. Right, so where are we? White Tiger 225 says, question. Evil players are pursuing succubi who trick them into committing evil without pay. What's some more ways these succubi can trick them? Well, I would say that the important thing to look at when you are looking at succubi is do a little bit of research on the history of succubi. And they are a very interesting monster from our own personal mythology, arriving in or around about the 15th, 16th century in Europe. And effectively, they were means of explaining away men and women who would suffer from incubi, the male version of the succubi. They were a scapegoat for men behaving badly and basically for women sleeping around. And the succubi were sent to tempt them to doing evil acts. Meanwhile, they were just doing it because they're human beings and that's what they do. So I would look at it from that perspective and see what the succubi can tempt in terms of the player characters. Look at their backstories and see what they were looking for or hoping for, or maybe there's a friend or a mother or something along those lines that they can then jump in and project or pretend to be, or hire someone to come stumbling out of the woods scarred beyond recognition and claim to be their brother, or those sort of things. So I would look at something along those lines if you're going to be looking at succubi. I would also make sure, and this is something that actually came up the other day, and I started a whole new channel on it on the Discord server, was make sure that your players are comfortable with whatever level you're going to sync to, because the succubi and the incubi were really there for sexual predation, sexual deviation and the like. So they were designed specifically for that. I don't know if you want to go down that path. I'm not entirely sure that would be in the spirit of what they now currently used as, which is just as a sort of a subset of devil, really. Okay, next question. Scotsglan says, Guy, have you ever been told that you sound a lot like the wonderful Sir David Attenborough? Yes, I have been told that once or twice, usually when I do his voice. And I like to listen to his voice. And the way in which he has his inflections, there's always like a wonderful concluding finality to his sentences, which are cliffhangers. And that, I must admit, that really taught me when I was watching his documentaries. That taught me how to get the tone right for a cliffhanger. Because if you think about it, that's kind of like how he ends almost every sentence. It's like, the bird of paradise will now continue to look for a mate until it is late spring, by which time it is too late. And you're like, that's brilliant, that's the cliffhanger. He hasn't found a mate, it's end of spring, what's he going to do? Oh my God. And then it's like, summer. And the bird of paradise must now build a nest to try and attract a female who didn't find a partner before. And you're like, that's, oh my God, yeah, there we go, that's it. And so his way of speaking, I mean, that's the professional voice that we were talking about as well. Because if you listen to him talk in casual interviews, he doesn't have that same, he doesn't sort of say, Peter, what do you think about the new boat? He doesn't go, I think the new boat is fantastic. And when it launches into the Antarctic, I am excited for what it will find. He doesn't talk like that. He's like, no, it's great. It's lovely. I think it's cool. It's hip. Anyway, so there you are. Well, an important hero says they can do a mean Jacques Cousteau. Yes, I don't know. I play tennis nowadays with a person who grew up in France, and I love it because I love listening to people from different countries, because you listen and you go, but that's not how French people sound, because it doesn't like it. I mean, when you listen to me, you go, all right, you're definitely foreign, but I'm definitely foreign too in the UK. And you go, so that's what modern French sounds like, as opposed to what everybody thinks French sounds like when they come from Paris. There's that, but that is very Hollywood. It's not what they sound at all like from Paris. So, it's just wonderful. It's absolutely lovely. And I often get people looking at me sideways because I'm watching their mouths and I'm looking at how is their mouth moving, where is their tongue sitting, what words are they emphasizing. It's just wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful. Okay, next question. Tazimandus says, I'm currently working on a homebrew campaign and I'm struggling to create a starting for it. My original plan was to have the players die suitably epic deaths and a moment before their death be transported to another plane, whereupon they are given their mission and sent on their way. Does this sound good to you? Any tips for making it better? Well, look, I think the important thing that you need to bear in mind here is what you are proposing as a start, a lot of people would say, okay, well, that takes a lot of agency away from the players in terms of determining their character story, because they've been put into a situation that they didn't have any control over. Then they've been near-deathed, whisked away somewhere, and then being told, okay, this is what you're going to now do moving forward, and presumably try and prevent yourselves from ending up in that near-death experience, so then they get sent back in time or wherever it is that they're going. And I think that is, I think that, you know, it's not bad. It is not a bad way to start. And I think your players will go, wow, this is so cool. Now we're going to figure out this, we're going to figure out that. So that's not a bad thing if that's what your players want. But if your players are expecting, oh, well, I've made my character, and I've got this long backstory, and this backstory is really exciting, and I can't wait, and, you know, I'm expecting to wander around this world which the GM has told us about, and then you're whisking them away to go and do something that has nothing to do with what you told them about, they could be disappointment. So my question to you would rather be, I think it's a great beginning, but are your players expecting something very different? Or have you prepped them by saying, guys, my next campaign is going to be a doozy. It's going to be mind-blowing. Be prepared for anything. Because if you've done that, then it's fine. Then it's absolutely fine. Sorry, I'm looking at my glasses here. Does it bother anybody that my glasses are reflecting blue? Does that freak anybody out? Because these are new glasses that I've just got. And they put this blue coating on. And I said, look, if it shows up on the camera, then I don't want it because it's distracting. It looks like I've got blue eyeshadow on. It's like, oh, hello. Anyway, so there we are. Right. Okay. If I miss a question, by the way, it's because they do scroll up very quickly. So just ask it again. Just post it again, and I will try and get to it. So, right. There we go. Next, Out of the Green says, one of my players created an evil PC for Avernus. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense. However, they don't like their PC and want me to kill them. They're long range, so never in the thick of it. Wait. Never in the thick of it. How can I do it without meta? Well, you know, I'd be perfectly honest with you, Xander. I think the one thing that I always advocate is, well, don't kill the character. Have the character change. Have the character do a side quest. Have the character about to kill someone in cold blood, about to do something that the player doesn't like. Then have them step into a side quest where we go back into their childhood. I mean, let's use Freudian psychology here. Goes back into their childhood with the rest of the party. Give them characters that you've pre-generated that are the friends of this character. And go to the moment where the character became evil, where the character decided to kill the puppy rather than to save the puppy. And it's at that point that you can then let the player save the puppy, realize that they could have saved the puppy, that they couldn't have saved the puppy even if they wanted to, sorry, and that they are not evil. It was just beyond their control. And so that when they come back to Avernus, the character can have had a change of thought, a change of heart, and is no longer evil, and now can start dealing with the ramifications of all this time I thought I was an evil character, I thought I was an evil person. Meanwhile, it was just fate that I couldn't save this thing, whatever the backstory is, find something. And now now I don't know who I am. Who am I? And so they effectively are creating a new character, but it's the same character for the rest of the players. So it's not like they're having to suddenly adjust to, oh, well, bye, Joe. Hello, Sally. We don't know anything about you. You don't have any history with us. You don't have anything. So it breaks the campaign. Or it puts a severe dampener on it for a while if you're going to be doing that other option. So there you are. Sheena Tiger says it brings out the colour of your eyes. Yes, considering that my eyes are bloodshot and brown. But there we go. It's okay. It's good to know that it doesn't happen only to my glasses. Yeah, Dekriska, it's weird. It's like people don't understand. They don't get it. Okay, Watch 2417 said, would there be a series with you and maybe Janet from World Anvil that shows how you write a novel using the Save the Cat method? It would be a lot of fun to do that. It really would. But unfortunately, I don't think Janet's got any time. They're very busy with their new move over to Greece. Their house looks absolutely amazing. Yeah, I've got to get my ducks in a row too. And I must admit, and I'm not going to be quoted on this, but November, from a channel perspective, we're hopefully going to have a Kickstarter running. but it looks quite quiet from my side because I'm working out how to work better, smarter, faster, leaner, meaner. You know, we've cut the team down to just me, which it always was, but we're cutting me down too. So it's this, you know, focused kind of, yeah. And there was a thought of doing NaNoWriMo, November thing, whatever that hell that thing is, that writing exercise. Because I have been desperate to do it. I started at the beginning of the year writing a book with the creative writing in the Discord channel. So I'd like to do that. But then I was thinking, well, maybe I can do it as a series of streams and that sort of thing. So I don't know. We'll see. We will see. Frederick Schmidt says, my players have rather religious characters. What can I do to stop them from trying to pray their way out of every problem without losing their faith? Oh, that's very simple. That's very simple. And I don't want to cast aspersions on anybody's beliefs or religions. I respect whatever it is that you believe in, provided that it doesn't cost anybody else any kind of suffering. But the idea is that they pray to their God for the God to provide protection from them in an encounter, and their God does not. The easiest answer is, well, yes, he actually did, because your characters came out the other side and they survived. And those few things that seemed to go wrong, they went wrong for a reason. That's so that you could learn to be better. So I would use that God as a guide, as a matter of fact, to make the players see the error of their ways rather than the actual characters. So I've just done the video this Friday on the 7 NPCs. The 7 NPCs you will only ever need, or the only 7 NPCs. We couldn't work out how to do the title. And neither could anybody else for that matter. So if anyone has any suggestions, it's a bit late now, but that's that. Have the God give them a guide. And I would have a priest, an NPC that they come across who's of the same faith, the same religion, and I would have him say, well, during the battle, of course he was assisting you, or she was, or they were, or whatever the gender is of your God. Well, that's why you're here to ask the question now. It's not about making it easy. If it was about making it easy, then there wouldn't be any challenge and there wouldn't be any point to life. No, it's all about making sure that what you're praying for is the right thing. Who says that winning that battle was what your path was meant to be? Perhaps losing it is more valuable. So I mean that's the usual kind of stuff that you can go with. So yeah, I would look at it from that perspective. Use the god or a monk or an NPC as the mentor for the player characters to advise them on that sort of stuff. I would also, what I used to do in my games, or what I still do, but I haven't had very many clerical individuals before, but is if they pray and the prayer is within the purview of the god, so if their god is the god of war and they pray to the god before they get into battle, that's okay. Get them to roll a d100, and if they roll 1%, then the god answers, and then you give them +5 to damage, or you give them some minor mechanical benefit. But if it doesn't fall within the purview of the god, well, then they should be punished for that. And then they get -5 to damage because they were praying to the god of peace to help them kill people. What? That doesn't work. So that's how I would do it, that way. SW Ont Gamer says, what are your thoughts on Rime of the Frost Maiden? I haven't looked at Rime of the Frost Maiden, to be perfectly honest with you. And, you look at all of these books that are coming out. We've just had Mythic Odysseys of Theros. Now we've got Rime of the Frost Maiden. I understand COVID caused a delay. But then we've got the next one coming out. And then we've got the next one coming out. And then we've just been told, oh no, two old settings are going to be revived, which is what Dungeons & Dragons does. They don't make new settings anymore. They just revive old ones, or they borrow ones from other product lines that they have. And we're just going to be releasing a book every 3 months. Okay, great. It shouldn't take you 3 months to play through the book. It should take you a year or more, in my opinion, to play through any one of the books. I mean, if you look at Ghosts of Saltmarsh, that's easily a 2-year game just on that one book. Descent into Avernus, the same kind of thing. So I think they're very exciting. They're great resources if you need that sort of thing. Very inspirational. I mean, again, that's what they're supposed to be. But it's impossible to keep up. It really is impossible to keep up. So I wouldn't stress too much about it. I honestly haven't seen anything about it. I remember the computer game. I didn't play it, sadly. Icewind Dale, which I assume is the same setting. I do know that the map. When I looked at the map, has my video gone all funny? Because of my phone getting a bloody message. That's weird. Is the video okay? Give me a thumbs up if the video's okay. I don't know. It looks kind of jerky, right? Is it all right? Anyway, okay. Yeah, I know that the map that they did, the Rime of the Frost Maiden website, there's a map on that they made. I don't remember being impressed by it. I remember looking at it going, well, I like the map, but I didn't like the execution of it. I didn't like the final sort of product look of that. That's just me personally. So there you are. Okay, let's see where we are. And then Voodoo Janus says, what do you do to make your mastermind NPCs come across as intimidating political opponents in game? Anything you base them off of? Well, yes, I think the important thing to bear in mind when you are doing a mastermind is that they are superior to the villain, to the villains that will be working for them, but that they have some kind of knowledge that puts them above the PCs, and that knowledge could very well be the metagame that the DM has. But it needs to be excusable. It needs to have a reason why they are in a position of power and capacity and superiority. One thing that you could look at doing, and again, this depends. I didn't mention this in the video, and I probably should have. But no, wait, I haven't actually launched that video yet. It's coming out, so yes. Anyway, when you're dealing with masterminds are politically secure individuals. Usually that's how they get away with things, or they are physically secure individuals. Take some classic examples. Krang from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the 1980s and the 1990s. Krang was in the Technodrome, and the Turtles could never get to Krang. They knew that Krang existed, but Shredder was always there to interpose, and when the Turtles did get close to Krang, he would always throw April O'Neil into danger and then escape and be evil and slimy in doing so. But the Turtles would win a victory. The important thing is that the PC should win a victory. So that's Krang as the mastermind and Nemesis driving the whole thing. Emperor Palpatine, exactly the same example of a mastermind, but so much better handled in the original Star Wars films, because finally, when we get to the showdown with the mastermind, the thing that protects him, Darth Vader, the thing that protects him suddenly turns on him and allows for a victory to be achieved. And I can say that now with confidence, because Disney is erasing the last 3 films that they made, which is very sad in a way. But at the same time, you kind of go, well, it's sad for the actors and the crew that worked on those films, because everybody worked really hard on those films. It's just a pity that they completely missed the plot. So there you are. But anyway, so that's that one. Okay, Dekriska says, my players usually catch up on my plot, stories, and surprise twists don't really work. Is that a problem or a sign that they think about the plot? If it's a problem, any tips to change that? Well, the most important thing I would say, Dekriska, is, are they figuring out the plot the moment you launch it? It's like, help, my dog's stuck down a well. And they go, it's a mind flayer in the Underdark who's manipulating the king. We know that one. If that's the case, then yes, you need to be more devious, and I would suggest watching a whole lot more television series or reading a whole bunch of more books on that sort of subject, with good plot twists and the like. But if they've been going for a while, and they get to the point where the clues have been given, and you've given them clues, and they're figuring it out, that's brilliant. That's great GMing. That means that you are giving them enough for them to figure out the plot, so now they can take action and resolve that plot. So I think that is the way to look at it, is really how early on they take on that plot or not. So that would be my suggestion there. Flight Tiger 225 says, player literally just messaged me he cannot make tomorrow while on the chase of shape-shifting succubi. What's some fun filler content so I don't have to just not have the session or go without that player? I would do exactly what I suggested you do in the first place. Have them jump into the minds of one of the player characters and... okay, maybe it was for a different answer, but nonetheless, I would have the succubi jump into the dreams of one of the player characters and go and have a romp down some surrealist exploration of the player character's past. Yeah, just go have fun and let the players have a moral choice, and then if they choose the right choice, then one of the succubi will be injured and will reveal a little bit of information that they didn't have before. That's what I would suggest that you have a look at doing. Northstar Engine says, what's in the business of money making, and they're currently experiencing, oops, let's just go back there, that was looking interesting, currently experiencing a period of unprecedented popularity. They flog book after book after book, most of which are unnecessary. If you find an installment you like, that's cool, but most DMs make their own worlds. So the installments are very unnecessary. Northstar Engine, I have to disagree with you on that one. A lot of older GMs make their own world settings, but a lot of younger GMs believe that the only space they can play in is the books that are coming out. And I must admit, it's not just Dungeons and Dragons. When you look at the TTRPG that I've just reviewed, The Dark Eye, I actually got to a point where I have become so frustrated with the fan base of The Dark Eye telling me that I can't play the TTRPG in any other world except for the one that was created for the TTRPG. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell them I will create my own world regardless of what system I'm playing. They keep coming back and saying, nope, the only thing that's worth it about the Dark Eye is the world that it's set in. And if you don't use the world, you might as well not be playing. It's such a toxic approach to take. So I agree with you that those installments, you don't need to have every single one of them. You don't need them to play the game at all. A lot of people, though, feel that they do. So, yes, Wizards of the Coast, like every company on planet Earth, is trying to survive and make money and pay its salaries and make a profit. So, yes, they will release material as much as they can. And I do think it's about just trying to keep up and choose the ones that you are interested in rather than just buying them all and then having them sit on a shelf somewhere and not be of value to you. I do think that's important. Although having said that, I mean, I buy books all the time that I go, I will read that one day, probably when I'm dead. So, you know, bear that in mind. Oh, I stopped the questions coming through. Wait a minute. Ruffles Mini says, what are your opinions on asking a player where they want to go or what they want to do in the next session? For example, my players have just met with Madame Eva in Cos, I don't know what that is, and have many threads that they could follow. Or do you feel like it spoils the mystery or the magic of it all? I don't think there's any problem in terms of saying that if you look at your players and you go, okay guys, so next session, what do you guys think you wanted to do? What do you think, what adventures are you wanting to explore? Let them tell you, because again, the art of being a great GM, I think, is about listening to what people are expecting, what people are hoping for, and then giving it to them, but in a way in which they didn't expect it. So if Madame Eva has said, oh, if you go into the house during the dark at the stroke of midnight, 3 witches will visit upon thee. Be warned, the first is a liar, the second is an adulterer, and the third is a truth-sayer. Listen to the one that you believe will lead you to the right path, blah, 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 blah. If that's what you've set up, and they go, oh, I'm terrified about these witches. I wish we knew more about them. That's your adventure. Is that as they're about to leave, someone goes, psst, yeah, you. I couldn't help but overhear that you're going to go and look at the witches. Do you want to know what they're really about? Come follow me. And then you take them into a sewer, and there's a battle, and there's a thing, and a thing, and a thing, and a thing, and eventually they discover that the 3 witches is actually just one person, but it's 3 aspects of the same person. And they've got to work out which aspects to ask the right questions to in order to get the correct answers. You know, so it's that kind of stuff. Listen to what they want, give it to them, but give it to them in a way that they didn't expect it. And you can't go wrong with that. You cannot go wrong with that. That would be my suggestion. Oh, Curse of Strahd. Sorry, thank you. Yes, Curse of Strahd. Right, so Christian Taylor says, I want to rewrite the drow to be less monstrous and more like a hardened warrior society that is centered around a code of honor and loyalty to country. Any tips? Do it. Do it. Everybody knows that has ever watched any of my shows that the drow in my world, regardless of whether it's Braxia or another world, the drow in my world are always a Roman republic. They are not the Lilith, evil worshipping matriarchal society that they were scripted to be according to the D&D setting. They are Romans, and they have Roman names, and they operate the same way as the Republic of Rome used to operate, with a senate and 2 praetors and centurions and tribunes and all that kind of wonderful stuff. So that's exactly. If you want to rewrite them, do it. The critical thing, though, is to let your players know that beforehand and say, hey guys, so listen, these are my drow, this is how they operate. They don't hate the surface, they do hate the surface. If you're changing their attributes, sunlight sensitivity, whatever it might be, again, let your players know that. I would encourage you to then continue doing that for all of the rest of the races as well. And going, well, I've got regular elves that you would think of as elves, but they're very cold and logical. Then I've got sort of Japanese elves, which are very honor-bound. And then I've got desert elves, which are basically ancient Egyptians. And then I've got cannibal elves from the woodlands, which are the wild elves. And then I've got aquatic elves, which are kind of like the drow and kind of like the logic elves, but they are absolutely evil warlords who enslave animals because they ran away from all of the other. So I would just continue to expand upon that wonderful creation process till eventually you end up with a world and you're like, oh yeah, I've got 58 different races and they've all got their own language. Don't do that. Okay, next question. How are we doing for time? We're doing okay. We are doing okay. Elias Hooker says, I started a new fantasy campaign where 6 mages are selected to search faraway place called Balefire of the Gods, traveling through a giant rainforest. Where would there be? What would there be? In the giant rainforest? I think, off the top of my head, I would have giant dinosaurs. I would have the giants as Amazonian warriors and things like that, because that's always cool. And then I would have giant dinosaurs and giant snakes that the party have to fight, and make them titanic. So they have different hit points. Their legs have got different hit points from their heads, from their bodies and their tails. Make them truly, truly spectacular. These are mages that you've got. So they're going to be throwing out all kinds of cool magic. Make the monsters even more interesting. Make them varied and cool. Jeff Williams says, any advice on finding good music for my sessions? Any albums? I have streaming services but can't find music that fits. My advice would be to go and look for classic soundtracks from the 1980s. You're looking for things like Indiana Jones. You're looking for something, pretty much anything that John Williams wrote. Hans Zimmer, Jerry Goldsmith, Alan Silvestri, Danny Elfman. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. But if you find soundtracks from the 80s and the 90s particularly, and from the 2000s, from that 30-year period, there's lots of films just waiting for you to go and find their soundtracks legally. And the soundtracks are amazing because they're built on a system of an hour long. That's usually the length that the CD used to be, and we still kind of stick to that, which is weird these days. But they're built on an hour-long basis, and in that hour there is a romantic movement, there is a dramatic movement, and then there is a restful movement. And if you can get that into your game, then your game starts to get a nice pace. I did a whole series of videos on my YouTube channel called How to Use Music in Your Game way back when. I think it was like one of the first videos that we actually did. And you can go and have a look at that. I see that Troll fan Berg Troll said the Assassin's Creed game music is amazing. Yes, Assassin's Creed 2 Black Sails is great if you've got a slightly nautical theme. Origins is brilliant for Egypt, obviously. And then the Valhalla one, I was listening to it. I actually wasn't impressed by the Valhalla one. It didn't pop to me. It didn't really take me there. But anyway, so there you are. Um, Albino Reaper says, how would you approach designing a Dungeons & Dragons campaign with highly political role play? What makes something low versus high political role play? Are there any differences? Yes. Well, first, I don't know about official differences. I don't know about official classifications, but the idea of political role play is the PCs have to have some kind of stake in the game. So this is what a mistake that a lot of people make is that they go, okay, PCs, you're level 2, you save the prince, and now you get to advise on how the kingdom works. That is going to give the PCs a sense of position and power, but it doesn't give them a buy-in. So if you want to have a really political game where the PCs are concerned about the political outcomes, they need to be involved and invested in those outcomes to begin with. So, for example, this building has central heating and mine cannot be turned off at the moment. The landlords will be getting a very strongly written letter telling them to politely come and fix it because they were supposed to before I moved in. Anyway, what were we talking about? We were talking about politics. Yes. I ran a political game where each of the characters represented a different barony or dukedom, and they had to go and make sure that they didn't get incorporated into an army, because their people would starve to death because they wouldn't be able to get their crops in on time, and they had their own problems. They had undead blights, and they had this, and they had the next thing. So you have to give them a stake. You have to give them some kind of involvement in the political outcomes, not just giving advice to kings and that kind of thing. And then that makes it much more interesting, because then you can have a senator sidle up to them and say, well, your barony, it's very quaint, very useful, very productive, I hear. I know you're going to have problems with the harvest later, so listen carefully. If you support me in the next vote, on whatever it might be, I'll make sure that your neighbour, the Duchess de Gouvois, I'll make sure that she gives you at least half of whatever she reaps from her land, provided that you send at least 50 peasants to help her bring the harvest in. That will see you through winter, and it will also secure a nice alliance between you and the Duchess de Gouvois. What do you say? So it's that kind of manipulation that you can then start to use, which is awesome, because then the players are going, no, screw you. We're not going to work with the Duchess de Gouvois. We know that she's a necromancer and she's summoning undead, but we can't prove it yet. And we're not going to vote for you. Then I will vote to having your little barony converted into a subsection of the Duchesses so that she can maintain better control and ensure the tithes are paid to the king. You've just made an enemy. And then off they go. I mean, it's like, yes, that's what you want. That is exactly what you want. Okay, on my list I have the next question is from Vid Rajin. Do you think senior staff in movie industries, for example Hollywood, play Dungeons & Dragons whilst brainstorming movie ideas? Some of the movies nowadays feel RPG inspired to me. Maybe I'm not alone. Okay, so, well, that's an interesting one. Bearing in mind, if you watch Vidrajin, my channel, the basis for everything that I talk about is from script writing for film and television. So it often feels like, oh, this is an RPG adventure, because it's got the same narrative structure. But the narrative structure is the same regardless of whether it is or not. Now, I do know that you kind of watch some films and you're like, wow, this really does feel like a bunch of players were playing this game, and that's why it's so freaking nuts. And there is. I mean, having sat in on script writing sessions for television series and for a few feature films, and being part of that process, there is that period where you go, well, what would they do? They're in this room. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? And then one of the writers gets so frustrated, they go, well, I pull my pants off and pee on it, and I'll bend the bars that way. And everyone goes, what? You can't do that. And he's like, yes, you can. And then you Google it and you prove that, wetting fabric makes it stronger, and then you can bend bars with it. Anyway. So it does happen. It does happen that way. But I haven't ever, in my years of experience, come across someone who has said they used role-playing mechanics to tell a good story. But I mean, obviously, there's all of those wonderful stories about actors playing Dungeons and Dragons on film set. That I do know happens because they're actors. So they and if someone says, "Hey, let's play D&D," then let's do it. And you know, you've got lots of downtime whilst you're waiting for all the crew to do whatever it is that they're doing. So there is definitely that. Leslie Dunn says, I'm starting a new game with a group I don't know well. One player has no RPG experience. What are some tips to make sure she doesn't get overwhelmed by the experienced players? Well, I would make sure that you give everybody equal time and opportunity. I would also make sure to monitor that if it gets to her turn and you say, what are you doing? And she goes, oh, I don't know what I can do. I'm not sure what I can do. Don't say, well, you could do X, Y, and Z. What I would do is I would have her then turn to the group. I would say to her, listen, okay, well, the way that we resolve this is have your character turn to the rest of the group and ask them what she should do. So that's in character. That's what you're actually doing. Okay, guys, what should I do? And then everyone can give an input. If people are starting to give input without request, and I say, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be going there and you should be doing that. Break right away. Say, stop. This is about learning. This is about experience. We were all once new. So how does your character help her character to decide on what they should be doing? That is the first thing that I would look at. Definitely look at that. Oh, look, clickbait has arrived. There we go. I don't know if Laura Bones is in chat, ready to kill and slay, but it'll go away. Brad Harrison. Okay, good. Last few questions, then we'll go on to the review of the thingamabob, Doody Dad. Don't know what's happened with my brain. It's so hot in this room. Okay. Brad Harrison says, what is your opinion on building your campaign with your players using collaborative methods? Yes, and yes. That's how I build my campaigns. I generally will draw the map. I will litter around some of the cultures where I'll go, they're Egyptian, they're Roman, they're Ethiopian, they are Brazilian or whatever. You know, I will throw some cultures around that I think are quite cool. And then when the players start to ask me questions, I throw it straight back at them. I don't know what the greeting is for how merfolk say hello to each other. So my players came up with the idea that they rub their fins together. And you go, there we go. That's it. That's how they do it. Brilliant. Wonderful. You know, and then off you go. So yes, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But you ultimately have to be the final voice. And you might go, no, I don't think so. No, it's a bit silly. But I like your thinking, because always be positive. I like your thinking. Rather, instead of rubbing their fins together, they flap their fins. There we go. That's how they do it, because it's got a nice sound to it as well. Darker Chan says, what can you do as a player if other players and you argue in and out of character and nothing seems to happen in game? It's a tough one. It really is a tough one. And I think you need to look at, why are people arguing? Is it because they want to prove themselves right? Is it because they just refuse to accept other people's opinions? If you're saying it's happening in game, that's fine. That's characters doing their thing. If it's happening out of game as well, then that's interpersonal issues that are coming to the surface. And sometimes it's a simple case of saying, who is causing the strife to start? Because usually it's one person. Okay, we're going to play a session without that person, and we're going to see what a difference it makes to the dynamic of the group. Group dynamics is phenomenally powerful, and it's something that I really wish I understood more of from a psychological perspective. But you have one person who is just a little bit pushy, and it can knock the whole game off of kilter. And if you take that one person out, suddenly it's a whole different game. To this day, I have two great friends who were great friends outside of role-playing. But the moment they sat down at the table together, their characters were fighting. They were fighting, arguing and snarky and backbiting. And it was like, guys, what's going on? And they're like, I don't know. It just happens. We sit down in front of each other and it just comes out. And it's like, okay, you I played board games with, you I role play with. How did I make the decision? It was literally eeny, meeny, miny, mo type of stuff. So look at who's instigating it. Look at who's being the stuck in the mud. And if it's you, it's time to step away and say, why are you arguing with everyone? Why is it so important that you're right? Because the rules say so. But if the rest of the group doesn't care, then it's time for you to find a different group. Let us see. Next is Drizzt101. Thank you so much for that donation. I really do appreciate it. I really, really, really do appreciate it. Thank you. It is not expected, but it is most certainly welcome. So Drizzt102 says, running mob style dark industrial revolution style setting, session 2. Need to have something happen to help reinforce animosity with local cops without being full session event. I'm struggling. Suggestions for inspiration. Need to have something happen to help reinforce animosity with local cops without being a full session event. Well, to be honest with you, if you want to drive the stakes with the cops that isn't a full session event, I would have 4 cops, depending on how many players you have. I would have the players come across the 4 cops murdering someone, an innocent person, because they saw something that they shouldn't. And the cops will kill the person in front of the PCs, and then the PCs will obviously, or hopefully, engage with those cops, and they can have a battle with the cops. The cops can get severely beaten or damaged or even killed. And then the next day, I would have a newspaper coming out where the police force is giving a hero's funeral to these 4 dirty cops, and there's no mention of them being murdered by the PCs. It's that they died in the line of duty. So it's even further exacerbating that lie and showing that there's a deeper conspiracy, that the cops stick together. And of course, now I would also have those cops hunting down the PCs. That would be my very quick answer to that. Hopefully that will help you. There is also a new Kickstarter that has come out. I don't have the link with me on hand, but if you search for this title, just because you asked for it, or mentioned it, if you look for Archon, no wait, what is it? Archeron. Archeron. There we go. Archeron from Dark World Studios. Yeah, where is it? Dark World Studios. I cannot. World Studios. Is that, where does the L go before the R? So if you go onto Kickstarter and you look for Dark World Studios, they're actually running a Kickstarter at the moment, which uses the D20 system, but in a 1930s kind of gritty way, where firearms are incredibly deadly. It's like you get shot once, you possibly could die from just being shot once. So it's very gritty, very, 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 very gritty. So bear that in mind. Okay, what's the time? No, all right, we're going to go on to the submission now of the adventure. So I'm going to go through this adventure. Someone has submitted it. I don't know who it is. I have no idea who it is. There is no such thing as a wrong submission. There is, however, submissions that may or may not work. So let's have a look at it. Now, if you want to do your own submission, you can go and become a patron. Let me just bring my picture up here. You can go and become a patron of the channel. That's patreon.com/greatgamemaster. You'll find our Patreon there, and then you can submit these if you want us to go through these. But we are working through a backlog at the moment. So there we are. Are we the Batties? Are we the Batties? You might be the Batties. I'm not sure. Did someone raid us, perhaps? Well, let's see. If you did, welcome, Batties. There we go. Anyway, all right, so we're looking at this adventure. The adventure is titled Water's a Heck of a Drug. Heck of a. There we go. I like that. Thank you for the raid. There we go. Absolutely, Batties. Water's a heck of a drug. Water's a heck of a drug. Now, there is lots of text written in these boxes. Oh, my goodness. The idea, folks, is not to write pages and pages and pages of information. So this is going to take us a bit of time to go through. Okay, the players, hopefully you can read some of that. The players, who are guards of Castleburn, a walled city at a major trading crossroads, are tasked with investigating shipments of spring water coming into the city, which have become extremely popular in just a few days. For the normally paranoid city, this is very odd. Through investigation, they can locate the seller in a massive outdoor market and convince him to tell them where he gets the water from. He's a local reseller, but gets the water from nearby Dallerton, a small village with a stream that comes from the mountains. If they fail to convince the seller, they can stake out the delivery to track it back to its source in Dallerton. Brilliant. Okay, great. So we've got evil, mind-controlling water that causes people to become addicted. Lovely. What do we expect? Well, let's see. When the players are questioning the seller, he will run out of water. Ooh. Desperate customers will start a brawl in the middle of the market. They will have to subdue the crazy citizens without killing them, of course, hopefully. Ha! Who are we kidding? They're all going to die. A woman with a baby. A woman with a baby will be caught in the middle. If the encounter is handled without injury to the baby, the woman will mention, oh, I like this part, the woman will mention that she hopes her heroes do not intend to go to Dallerton. She's heard rumours from a friend, of course. This is now the husband of my uncle's late great-grandfather's postmaster's mistress's wife, that there is actually a forest that is haunted around Dallerton. Okay, cool. So that's a very nice little reward for not hurting the lady with the baby. Great. So brilliant. We've set it up. Now we know exactly what's going on. Journey to the plot is the players go to Dallerton. Well, the player characters go to Dallerton. As they get closer, fog will begin to gather. Ooh. Only those with dark vision can see a few more inches in front of their face. See combat. The party will be attacked in the dense fog on the road to Dallerton. They will catch glimpses of shadowy furred forms. The attackers will vanish once the players manage to hit one. Any injured characters will be able to see bite marks on themselves. Any trained in medicine or survival might be able to estimate the size of the beasts, just about the size of a mountain lion, but with more canine-like teeth. That's interesting. Okay, thanks, Laura Bones. Bye! Enjoy your game. All right, so they fight all these things. Once they make it to... Oh, my God. Okay, I'm going to paraphrase, right? Okay, see what I'm doing now to read this stuff? You shouldn't be doing this during the game. So there's too much information here. This would be better handled in a different format using a different template, but that's okay. You can download this template, by the way, from our website, www.greatgamemaster.com. Okay, once they arrive in Dallerton, there's a river running through the middle of it with a pool surrounded by statues. Only guards in town are surrounding the pool with only a few houses and not much else, blah, blah, blah. They go to a tavern. Okay. What? So they get +1 if they drink the water, which is absolutely fine. If they refuse, they'll be allowed to stay. Anyone... Fog and shadowy forms. They call the fog fat. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Villagers will be making a pilgrimage to the sources of resources. The worshippers will be surprised and horrified. Right, okay. Lots of stuff was going on. Too much stuff, as a matter of fact. This is great for seeding a whole bunch of stuff, but it's overload. It's really an overload. I think this is someone trying to be very thorough, which is there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But I would say players arrive in Dallerton, they get attacked, see combat. Okay, they arrive, they get offered a drink. There's guards standing around the pool. There's notes, see fangs, see worshippers, see cult, and have those notes separately. It's really, 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 really about this whole table is about making your life easier, not making you have to squint at it. All right, so any player who drank the spring water will awaken with 1 level of exhaustion, no stat boost, and a craving for the water. DC 15 wisdom to overcome the urge to drink more. 1 glass removes exhaustion. Oh, dear. Okay, 1 glass removes exhaustion. Another glass will give the boost. The player can make a wisdom saving throw after the first glass. If the party is not escorting the worshippers, they must... the worshippers and the players... Okay, so They discover that there is not a plot. Anyone who enters the pool will have their stats returned to normal and exhaustion increased by 1 each turn. If the players do not under the effect of the water, then they can enter. A huge ooze will emerge from behind the waterfall. Oh my goodness. Okay, right. Waterfall, black, blah, 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 attacks, violence, etc., etc., etc. Okay. All right, so what we've got here is we've got way too much information. I mean, it's great to have it. It's really great to have it. And I can't say anything against that. It's just not going to work for the purposes of this demonstration. You know, it's like, okay, let's take a step back. Right. So they go with the worshippers. What's the big challenge here? What's the big challenge here that hasn't been addressed is if the player continues to fail their saving throw and they drink more, and they then the next day assumedly have to drink more, and they have to drink more, how do they get out of it? Okay, so they go into the pool, and when they go into the pool, it removes it and all of that kind of stuff. All right, but I could be buried in here somewhere. I don't get the point of why. So let's just skip through it. Players in the water will still be trapped by the magical barrier. They kill the ooze because the ooze is there. I don't know why the ooze is there. Players in the water will still be trapped by magical barrier. They find a puzzle solid stone. Head of the Kraken. The logo of the Kraken's vice, which was the same tavern that they started in. Okay, so that's a nice link back. Okay, the players must control the villagers either by sneaking into the tavern, forcing the result of tavern brawl. Okay, so what we've got here is, I think that the original idea is great. The original idea is a lot of fun. But we've now got the same brawl. We've got people desperate to get the stock, get to the water that we had in the market, that we had earlier on, which was a great opener, but now it's just more of the same, isn't it? So we would want to change that up. We'd want to make sure that it is not the people desperate to get to it. Maybe the reason why they're desperate to get to it is people have started to die. So they've upped the game, you know, something along those lines. And what they're fighting off is perhaps they're fighting off the guards who are protecting the tavern rather than the people who are trying to get into the tavern. I think that would help make it sort of punch up even more. Once in the basement, the players will discover the bartender drinking from his stores of water, a woman dead at his feet. The fog will be creeping in. And stuff will happen, and the players confront the bartender. The Fang Guardians will attack. The walls are weak. Any missed attacks along the wall result in the river flooding in. The water stores are destroyed. Blah blah blah. The players can escape via fog fang tunnels if they did not make. Okay, right. So 1,000 points for detail and effort. I come from the bullet points. Let's make these bullet points. We don't need the writing. The writing is great in terms of really breaking it down and that sort of stuff, but it's not necessary. These are notes for yourself as the dungeon master, not books that you need to read whilst these things are going down. That's my suggestion. We don't have any rewards. Players don't get anything. No random names. These are here for a reason. They really make your life a lot easier. Did you seed anything during this adventure? No, but this is a note on Castleburn. This is a setting me and a few other GMs came up with for use when we don't have time to prep our major campaigns or not all our players can make it. All the characters are guards in the city, and most adventures are meant to be one session or 2 long, so that if players are missing, they don't have to jump in halfway. We just work with the guards we have. The adventurers are also a place to try and get crazy ideas for GMs and players. Try them out, since the characters and plot won't really get impacted too much by things going sideways. Okay, so if we take anything away from this write-up today, that's what we take away. That's brilliant. The idea of saying, okay, we've got this pre-existing castle, this town, and you go onto some kind of character generator and you generate 50 guards, and you go, okay, well, oh damn, Igor can't make it today. Okay, right, Dominic can't make it today. What a pity. That would be very sad. We'll all go and be sad. But then we're going to carry on playing, and here are 4 guards for you, and now we're going to go and find out the mystery of this weird water controlling thing. Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Play it for a session, get it done, move on. So I think that's the best thing to take away from that. And yes, way too many notes. I think on that, especially if this is a 4-hour session. It's like there's so much in there. It's like, are you really going to go through all that in 4 hours? Anyway, that's it. That's me. It could be an interesting one. Anyway, we've reached the end of our hour. So next week, what have I got for you next week? What's happening next week? Let me just bear with me, folks, because there's some exciting things happening. There was supposed to be a guest this week, but that didn't happen. So next week, I'm opening up my calendar, because this month is a very interesting one. So, yeah, okay. So all of that fell through, probably my fault. But next week we have some great guys going to join us, and I don't have the mug with me because I washed it just the other day. All right, what an idiot. We're going to have a great bunch of guys coming to join us. Super funny. One of them is a great author. They run a podcast, funny science fiction podcast, and it's super cool. I was a guest on their show. I don't think I've laughed as much as I did in that session. So they're going to be joining us next week for their insights on role-playing and answering your questions, of course, because that's what we do. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely be there for this one. It's going to be great. So if I didn't get to your question this week, please bring it again next week. Yes, let's see what we can do. Until then, I would say good night, goodbye, good afternoon, good morning to each and every single one of you. Thank you for being part of the show. Big numbers tonight. We haven't had 100 people before. In a while, as a matter of fact, in quite a while. Spiel.digital or Spiel.digital is the Spiel board gaming convention that is going to be taking place at the end of the month. I'm going to be doing some special videos just on that. Now, a lot of it is TTRPG stuff. Most of it is board gaming stuff. I've got some miniatures here. You can't see them. Well, you can see them. I haven't painted them yet. The camera won't focus because it's now set to not focus on stuff. But if you are keen of sight, you might recognize this as a guard from the Elder Scrolls. That's right. So we've got that happening. Then this is a little teaser. If you know who this is, I'll give you 1,000 experience points. It's someone riding their mount. Very famous character riding their mount. There are only 2,000 of these printed in the world and only available, sadly. There we go. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Got it first. It is He-Man. Absolutely. He-Man on Battlecat. I haven't painted it yet. Can't wait to. That is a surprising board game that's going to be coming out. I will be watching that like a hawk. So yeah, we're going to be watching. Spiel is going to be interesting. That's at the end of October. They're going to be doing all kinds of wonderful things, and I will be doing a playthrough. I've got confirmation now from all of my players. I'm going to be doing a playthrough on that Saturday night, the 24th, I think, where we will be playing a brand new, never before seen TTRPG based on an existing product, based on a board game, as a matter of fact. That's why it's at Spiel, I believe. And yeah, we're going to be going through that. We're going to be playing that one, and it is very exciting. I'm going to give you a brief hint because you guys are still here. The mechanic, right? It's not a new mechanic. But it will be the first time that I run a game like this. The dungeon master, the game master, doesn't roll any dice ever. The players roll the dice. Now, it's not a new mechanic. I mean, I did Through the Breach, which uses the Through the Breach rule system, where the Dungeon Master does not ever roll dice. For that matter, they don't, because it's a card-based system, but the Dungeon Master doesn't roll stuff. The characters roll stuff. The players roll stuff. So it's an interesting one. I had a brief look through the rules. I'm super excited to bring it to you. It will be our next Tuesday series moving forward. probably from mid-October on to mid-November. But it's a straight cool system as far as I can see it at the moment. I'm looking at it going, it's not super dense, but it's very playable, I think. So I'm going to be talking about that one moving forward. Now, absolutely, it's like phenomenon. Phenomenon. That's how you have to say it, by the way. That is the rule. The Muppets set that many years ago with Sandra Bullock, and it's inviolable. No, it's not inviolable. That's what happens when you can't grow violets in the garden. Anyway, it is a immutable law. So there you are. It's not the cipher system, Nicholas Morrow. It is not the cipher system, but you will find out in due course. And yes, Skeletor, I must admit, I have been a fan of Skeletor since the age of 4. And when I got my first dog, I wanted to call him Skeletor. That was the name that I wanted to give him. But my mother went, no, you cannot name your dog Skeletor. So I was very disappointed about that, and instead went with Sergeant Murphy, which I thought was much more interesting in the long run. Anyway, so there you go. Right, so we will be going through all of those wonderful things. If I do see you again, it will be this coming Wednesday for the live session. Our players are inside a giant shell underwater, about to face off against something truly, truly terrifying. Anyway, we shall get more onto that, but that comes up on Wednesday. Until then, however, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.